and the partnership that we have with Goliath and Google and the challenges we solve and a joint customer story and a demo to wrap up. We're going to have a specific question and answer session as well. So, like I said, we are joined with my friends from Goliath and Google. So I'll let them introduce and I'll follow them with my introduction. So Kerry and Mike, welcome to this webinar. It's great to have you here. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Mike, go ahead.
Hi, Mike Romancic, Virtualization Solutions Lead at Google. I've actually been in industry the last 20 plus years and recently had come on board to work from a partner and joint technology solution standpoint.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Welcome. Kerry?
Yeah, my name is Kerry Pence. I head up our product marketing here at Goliath. I've been here just under a year. Prior to that, I spent 8 years at Citrix. So I am a former Citrite, and then a couple of years at VMware prior to that. So happy to be here as well.
Thank you, Kerry. It's nice to see you here and being part of this webinar. So my name is Manjunath Agali. I head the Citrix study program. So one of my primary responsibilities is to help the technology partners like Goliath and Google build the integrations, validate, and promote the integrations that they have built for joint customers. So before we get started, a couple of housekeeping items. So this webinar is being recorded. We will share the slides post the webinar, including the recording and the slides as well. And I know you may have questions during the presentation. So please put those questions in the question and answer section in the Zoom webinar toolbar. So we'll take them accordingly or at the end of the webinar. So without any further ado, so let's get started. So one of the main objective today is to ensure of Chrome OS devices and optimize the Citrix user experience. So we have many use cases like this, like the CEO from System Solutions Inc., Scott, telling us how Goliath have been very helpful to prove the Chrome OS deployment and Citrix are not the root cause of end user experiences issues. It is more than that, right? So we know for a matter of fact that an IT infrastructure comprises of a hell lot of infrastructure components, hardware, software, applications, and so on and so forth. By end of the day, when user access an application from Citrix on a device, they either say the device is not performing as expected or Citrix is not performing as expected. Either Citrix is slow, device is slow, so on and so forth. But having a solution like Goliath will help identify the exact root cause and help in improving the employee experience. We promise in the next 35 to 40 minutes, we're going to point you. We're going to show you how to find that exact root cause and how to give
that first poll just to kind of get an idea of where everybody's at in their Chrome OS journey.
Right.
So Sean, do you have the poll that you can launch? All right, maybe give Sean a chance to work that out. We'll continue on.
We will put that up on the next slide after a minute or two, but let's keep going. So why we choose Goliath and Google? So why we choose Goliath and Google, right? So it's very, very important that they are a Citrix Ready partner. They're a key partner for all our enterprise customers. And at the Citrix Ready program, we focus on all the key stakeholders, be it customer or partners or Citrix. we welcome you. We welcome you to be part of the Citrix Study family and take the advantage of what we develop here and what we integrate and validate here, right? So in the Citrix Study program, we primarily concentrate on applications, data center solutions, endpoints and peripherals, security devices, services, and many more. So for the customers, we guarantee you get an assured compatibility with Citrix products and services. We also ensure it will be very easy for you to make the purchase decision with the number of choices we have here, which are all Citrix Ready validated. So in other words, we ensure that a product, before getting Citrix Ready validated, it's tested like the way you expect it to work by end of the day at your enterprise. So that's what we're going to do here. And for partners like Goliath and Google, it's a higher level engagement with Citrix. They get an opportunity to do leads and activities with us, and they get higher visibility via Citrix web properties and events. And what's more for Citrix, it's all about showcasing the partner solutions that complement our technologies and to create the stronger compute value and to create the Citrix product integration story, which helps addressing various use cases and business challenges. So next slide, please. So for customers to evaluate partner verified products, which helps in making your choice very easy and simple. So together with Goliath and Citrix, what have we done? So this is a key partnership, right? As we say, and as we learn more today, this is a key partnership for enterprise customer success. So through this partnership, we have addressed and we are addressing several industry verticals, several industry challenges and use cases. So especially for Google and Goliath, we do the in-house validations. That means we create a unique test kit, ensuring that it covers all the use cases that are required for Google and Goliath, and we validate that in-house before we approve their product as Citrix Ready. As a result of that, we have multiple bundles that can work together out of the box. So this comprises applications, peripheral devices, Chromebooks, endpoints running with Chrome OS Flex, and monitoring solutions like Goliath. So we have key initiative for healthcare and contact center verticals. So I'm going to share the links with you post this webinar as a follow-up email. So we have key solutions or bundles that can work for healthcare vertical or for contact center vertical. So all the solutions are tested end to end on various Chrome operating system versions, on various Citrix virtual apps and desktop versions with Goliath as well. So we also have validated solutions for Chrome OS Flex. So we're going to talk about Chrome OS Flex, what it is and all about that. So if you have an existing hardware, which is running with any other operating system, and if you think that the life of that hardware is done or over, right? So with Chrome OS Flex, you can give it a new life. You can help contributing to the Mother Earth by extending the life of the device for another 3-4 years, which is highly secure, easy to install the operating system in few minutes, and which will also increase the lifespan of the device by 3 to 4 years. So you get all the benefits that you get from the Chrome operating system. And what's more, we have validated a bundle of solutions, again, like more than 70 solutions or 70 with the Chrome OS Flex operating system as well. So without any further ado, so I would like to call my colleague from Google, Mike and Kerry, all yours.
Yeah, thank you, Manju.
Yeah, thank you.
In expanding our offering into the wider enterprise platforms, one of the key areas that Google always seeks to do is partner with industry leaders in this space. In the case of Citrix, as a longtime, bedrock standard of reliable and robust enterprise solutions, and in the scope of telemetry monitoring and overall environment visibility, Goliath Technologies has really been a huge standout in some of our target industries like healthcare and financial services in particular. So early on, that was an absolute part of our scope, and being very much aware that there weren't organizations that had been in an existing state that were just going to be cutting over. We very much understand that there's going to be a variety of technologies to where orgs might be at different stages of going from dozens to hundreds to thousands of devices across 2, 3, or even 4 different OS platforms. And that's why we had targeted this combination of technologies to be able to universally view and triage that from a single pane of glass. Goliath has been a unique partner in tying into our early efforts in telemetry around providing access to a robust platform where without a client being required on the Chrome OS endpoint, we are able to have those events and telemetry pulled directly from our admin console centrally into their product and be viewed as a seamless pane of glass that overlays over their existing. That correlation that they provide is something that uniquely drives that end-to-end picture, or even advanced troubleshooting capabilities that would result from all of that being consolidated into one product. And Kiri, if you had any points to add there.
Yeah, I mean, really when we look at it from you all's perspective, you're on this webinar because you're at least in some stage of considering Chrome OS device deployment. Whether or not that's you're just exploring options, maybe you're getting ready or pull out. And it could be any IT element. It doesn't have to be limited to just Chrome OS devices, even though that's our focus today. But, somebody made a decision to roll out some new piece of technology. It's really important that we ensure that you're able to ensure that that's a successful rollout and that the technology is adopted successfully. And part of that process involves a lot of Citrix and Google is to make sure we're getting fingers pointed in the right direction when you have those new technology rollouts. And so when we think about some of the challenges that we're trying to solve, and really, again, on two scenarios, really, you've got new Chrome OS device deployments. Again, that could be a pilot phase. Maybe you're still into your troubleshooting process. One thing that I want to kind of level set and point out, for most of you, you're probably on the Citrix team, the Citrix admins. You're likely not responsible for endpoints, so you might be sitting back and thinking, "Well, I don't really need to know." We have another team, not trying to replace or pull you into the troubleshooting of endpoint scenarios. What we're trying to do is give you a full picture. So when that ticket comes in and they say, I've just got this new Chrome device, I've tried to log into Citrix and I can't. The Chrome device is broken. There's emotion there. That's not what happened. Users aren't technical. They don't know, and they just blame the first thing that they see in front of them. And so what we're trying to do is give the Citrix team in particular the ability to quickly look at the Chrome OS device and say, yes, it's an issue. No, it's not an issue. If it's not an issue, let's continue down our troubleshooting path. If it is an issue, let's just reroute this ticket to the endpoint team and get it resolved by the team that can actually fix the issue. So that's really what we're trying to do, is provide that full visibility and serve everything up in this correlated fashion that gives you some actionable insights. Mike, anything from your perspective that you would add to that?
Yeah, and I think, one of the points you mentioned here around, particularly around new deployment support, when anything you enter into an environment that's been existing often takes the first level of heat. I think one of the key factors here is what we've seen with a pattern of our customers over the years is we're often involved in a digital transformation of some kind, when you have several layered years of investments of IT systems over time. And often some of the best opportunities to ensure success with a big change like this is getting a baseline of your IT and virtualization systems and establishing areas that you're able to optimize, and also that record of success as you do start to remove some of the complexity that might exist in your deployment stack, adopt newer technologies or endpoints or more cloud-based or SaaS software, and still have that very mixed experience of client side computing. The Goliath product offers that transparency down to the user experience level, and that's something I think we'll touch on in a little bit. But it gives IT administrators the confidence that they're making meaningful steps forward as they implement these new technology layers, and that's also where the Citrix Ready involvement really comes into play as well. Knowing that ahead of time that the Citrix Ready team has done the diligence on not just the specific hardware device that you bought, but oftentimes the software integration that you're bringing in or the particular Flex device that you're converting that you might have already had in-house. So a lot of that is just, giving a combination of devices, software packages, and visibility into your path forward that will help drive that success.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get into showing how to be able to establish that benchmark and maybe do some A/B testing and track along the way. And that's an important component in really ensuring success and eliminating emotion out of the equation. I can tell you firsthand, and we're probably all very similar. We're sort of creatures of habit. We like the things that we like. So if I've got a particular device or operating system that I've been using for most of my life, and you switch it on me, and something doesn't work, I'm probably going to blame that new device because I don't like it, because it's different, because it's something that I'm not used to. And so it's really important, from an IT team's perspective, to be able to eliminate that emotion and get down to the core objective truth of exactly what the end user experience is. And if we're completely candid, obviously from an IT team perspective, we want to make sure our end users are having a great experience, because we want them to be productive and be able to do their jobs without friction. But in the end, if we're totally candid, someone, probably an individual at our organizations made a decision to deploy a new piece of technology, to roll out Chromebooks and maybe decommission some of our old Windows machines. Somebody made that decision, so they're on the hook for a successful deployment. So it's there's a lot riding on deploying new technologies. So from Goliath's perspective, we look at things a little bit differently. The traditional approach is, very much a siloed approach. You've got the independent performance from all of the different IT infrastructure elements and applications. And so when something goes wrong, you've got all these different teams that have their own monitoring tools, and they're all kind of working together to kind of figure out what's going on with the end user. And if it's not pinging anything in their particular silo, they say, okay, everything on the networking side's good, or everything on the server side's good. So they're pulling all of this in, and someone's then having to infer what the end user experience is. And so we're taking a different approach to that. And we're actually starting from the end user's perspective and correlating everything into the mix. So things like user behavior, machine health, the location of the user, local connection, corporate network, server, all of these things, we're pulling it all into the session to get a full picture, a complete picture, a correlated picture of what might be impacting the end user experience. And putting it in a single view makes it very easy to diagnose, to get to the root cause of exactly what's impacting the end user's experience. From the end user standpoint, all these silos, they don't know that they exist. Really, they think it's all working, smoothly to deliver a great experience. But let's face it, the complexity of the IT infrastructure, it's nothing short of miraculous that we're able to deliver a great end user experience as often as we do. So when we think about what's pulled in, we've got all of this telemetry being pulled into a single dashboard. And for our intent today, we're also incorporating Chrome OS device telemetry. This is, by the way, the only way that you can see this. We've got a unique partnership with Google. We're the only ones with access to their APIs to be able to pull this in. And this is the only way that you'll be able to see the Chrome OS device telemetry, A. B, correlating it together with the Citrix session and everything that's impacting the end user. Again, we realize Citrix teams not responsible for endpoints, or at least, in larger organizations, you're not. But that can be a real blind spot when you're troubleshooting. You don't know what's happening. If you've got end users using Chromebooks, for instance, you don't know what's happening on that device. So it's very difficult to rule out or rule in that the device is part of the issue. So, this isn't a matter of lack of data. You've got plenty of data. There's plenty of monitoring tools. What is the issue is making sure that you've got all of this correlated and served up in a meaningful and actionable way. So seeing across the entire IT delivery infrastructure, that's your way of breaking down the silos. It's ending finger pointing, making sure that fingers are pointed in the right direction the first time, and not unfairly blaming, maybe the new device or Citrix. Citrix gets blamed for everything. So anything goes wrong, it's Citrix's fault automatically. That's what the end user thinks. So really being able to get in and see what exactly is happening. So we're helping you with the hard to find but easy to fix issues.
Perry, since you are talking about all the embedded intelligence and telemetry that you're going to collect, so there are a few questions related to what operating system can your solution support. And before you answer that question, I also want to see what is the combination of users we have today. Why don't we bring our first pool question to see what operating system does the attendees use today to understand and to answer that question. Does that work?
Yeah, that's good. So Zishan, if you can pull up the poll question, and I'll go ahead and answer the question. So obviously we're focused on Chrome OS today, but we can pull in, and I'll show you in the solution when we do the demo, but we're pulling in all of the operating systems. So it doesn't matter what operating system you're using, we're able to pull that in and correlate everything together. So you'll see all of your inventory in a single place.
Right.
From a poll perspective, what we'd really like to know is where you're at, what phase you're in with respect to your Chrome OS strategy. Are you just exploring it? And, that's why you're attending this session. Maybe you're actively planning, but you haven't done anything with it. Maybe you've already rolled out or getting ready to roll out a pilot or POC, or maybe you've got some full production deployment. It'd be useful to understand where everybody's at in their journey. All right. So you let me know when we're ready to move on, Manju.
Right. Yep. Zishan, go ahead and stop it and show the results.
All right. So most of you are just exploring, but almost half of you are in some phase of active planning or full production deployment. So it's half and half. If you've in the chat or in the question and answer, if you've got some, it would be interesting to know. So for those of you that are just exploring, what are some of the reasons why you're looking at incorporating or investigating adding Chrome OS devices? For some of you who already have deployed, or maybe you've got a pilot, I'd love to hear some of your stories as far as, successes and maybe areas for improvement from, your experience of deploying, some of your stories, your battle wounds. It'd be interesting to hear some of that. So if you wouldn't mind putting some of that into the chat or into the Q&A, again, just so that we can kind of see what you all are experiencing. So Mike referenced earlier the ability to benchmark, and this being something that's important as part of the deployment process. And this is something that we absolutely recommend. Anytime you're deploying any new IT element into your environment, it's really important that you establish a benchmark, something with which you can compare progress against. I do have, just as a call out, there's a QR code obviously on the screen. So throughout the session, if you're interested in free access to these end user experience reports that I'm talking about right now, go ahead and grab that QR code and we'll set you up with 30 days free access. But these end user experience reports, these were really developed because our customers had 3 challenges that they were consistently coming to us with, and we wanted to help them address it. So the first thing they were looking at is they didn't really have any objective way to tell how IT was doing at delivering a good user experience. And what was happening is the subjective feedback, the emotion, the opinion, that was really controlling the narrative. And leadership was looking at that and saying, we've got all of these complaints, IT must not be doing a good job. Well, IT didn't really have a leg to stand on because they didn't have any objective data. All they could go with was the subjective surveys. And you are all probably similar to me, in that you probably don't fill out a lot of surveys when everything is good, but you really feel compelled to fill out surveys when you're upset about something. And so they always tend to skew to the negative. The second thing that we wanted to help with is, the IT teams didn't really have the necessary data to actually improve the end user experience. So, end users are complaining that something's wrong, but those are always vague, especially in surveys. They didn't have the right data to really understand what they were experiencing. And then on top of that, when problems did occur, they got amplified. So they didn't, again, have an objective way of really looking back and seeing, is this something that's widespread, that's systemic across the organization? Or is this something that, there's a handful of power users or maybe VIP users who are making a lot of noise, and therefore that's controlling the narrative, and that's how, the lens with which leadership is looking at the IT delivery. So we developed these reports to be able to provide just that. When we're thinking about deploying new technology, and in this case, maybe running a pilot or a POC with Chrome OS devices, being able to establish what your user experience looks like today before you roll those devices out becomes a very important metric to be able to track then against as you deploy these new devices. So again, you roll this out, you've got an overall end user experience score. This is for the whole organization, maybe of 87. It's a pretty good score. You roll out the new devices, maybe that score stays the same, maybe it climbs to 90, but you have all of these user complaints saying my machine doesn't work, my Chromebook isn't working, I can't log on. But your objective data tells a different picture. Maybe if you're going to run a pilot, maybe it's with a particular organizational unit or department, or maybe a particular site or location. You can segment these out and look at them in aggregate. You can segment them out by organizational unit. You can look at the individual users to see whether or not it's widespread or whether or not it's just a handful of users, and then you can address those issues. So you can kind of do A/B testing. Maybe you want to see what's happening with your Windows users versus with your Chrome OS users. So there's a lot of different ways that you could do this. But again, the point is that this is objective, that it takes all of the emotion out, and it's the only way to be able to benchmark it against industry best practices. By the way, this is not, an arbitrary score. This is a score based off of an algorithm that then benchmarks it against industry best practices. So it's not just what the score looks like across your organization, it's how your end user experience is in your organization as it compares to industry best practices. So again, it's not arbitrary. But let's say also that you've got some maybe multiple sites, maybe you've got some offshore sites that you want to look at, and they're notorious for, let's say, poor connections. You can adjust the thresholds as well. So they're out of the box, ready to go, but they are customizable. You can adjust the thresholds to make sure that, the experience is commensurate with the technology that they've got available. And this is overall end user experience. You could do the same thing with logon duration. If that's the metric that you're looking at, if that's the area that you want to track, you could focus on logon duration as well. So just a quick customer story. We have a joint customer. They are a SSI. They're a Goliath customer, a Citrix customer, and a Google customer. And they were running into a scenario where they're an MSP. They were running into a scenario where they were deploying Chrome OS devices, Chromebooks specifically. And they were getting a lot of complaints from end users that things weren't working. Citrix was slow. It was broken. But they were blaming it on the device. And so, from their perspective, they wanted to make sure that, again, fingers were being pointed in the right direction. They want to make sure that they're getting to root cause of the issue quickly. In their mind as well, they've deployed these new devices. There's all these problems. There must be something wrong with the devices. But again, they didn't have any way to really see what was happening with the Chrome OS devices to be able to rule that out. And again, users, they're not technical. They blame the IT element that's right in front of them, the last thing that they interacted with. That's what they were looking for. So they came to Goliath, and we work with them to pull in the Chrome OS device telemetry. And what it really meant for them was faster troubleshooting and remediation. It reduced their escalations. 9 out of the 10 times when they would get an issue that was submitted, a ticket that was submitted, it was related to some other IT element. It had nothing to do with the device itself. Most of the time, it doesn't even have to do with Citrix. There's, again, the Citrix teams are oftentimes limited in visibility as far as what they can see that's impacting the end user. So much of the time you spend troubleshooting user experience issues that have nothing to do with Citrix, but you don't have visibility into the other areas. So you're going through this whole process of disqualifying particular issues only to find out in the end, well, I've disqualified everything. It's not Citrix. But if you had telemetry that could see across the entire IT delivery infrastructure, including Chrome OS device telemetry, you save yourself all of that time of going through the typical disqualification process, and you get pointed directly to the issues quickly. And that's what SSI has been able to do now with their customers as they continue to roll out Chrome OS devices with new customers. They're leveraging Goliath to ensure that it's a successful rollout within those customer organizations. So we're going to jump into a live demo. I want to make sure we have plenty of time to get through that. But just a quick thing to point out, this is a really quick deployment integration. It's very simple. If you're running Goliath already, if you're an existing customer and you've already got Goliath, it's a simple API integration. You're just connecting to the Google Admin Console, and then Goliath is automatically pulling in all of your Chrome OS device inventory. And then if you add new devices in the future, they're automatically pulled into your Goliath inventory as well. So very simple, very quick, very easy to deploy. So when we jump into the demo, we'll look at some of the primary issues, the primary headaches that you all on the Citrix teams tend to have, which are around logon, can't log on. Maybe the logon is slow, maybe Citrix is slow, but we're going to look at it through the lens of, what happens when we deploy a new IT element like a Chrome OS device. So, this is maybe something you've experienced in your pilots or your existing deployments, or maybe even just your full production deployments. All right, so let's jump in. So the first thing that I want to cover, this is our our inventory here. And first thing I want to point out that there was a question earlier about what operating systems we are able to cover. If you look at our inventory here, we're pulling in Windows, Linux, Mac, Chrome OS. We're covering any operating system that you might have in your environment. So again, we talked about being able to establish a benchmark. So let's say you're getting ready to deploy Chrome OS devices, or maybe you're just launching Goliath for the first time. Maybe you're not a Goliath customer at all, and you don't really have any benchmark as to what is happening across your customer organization. All right. One moment, something tells me I got bumped out. So let me reload my page real quick. All right, we should be back in. So the first thing that we would recommend is that you establish a baseline, that you run a report that measures end user experience, or again, if you're tracking logon duration, maybe you're running the report based on logon duration, that you run this report and you establish this is exactly what the end user experience looks like today. Again, this is objective. It's removing all emotion, removing all subjectivity. Just gives you a picture of exactly what's happening within your organization. Now, you could use these in a lot of different ways. You know, for today, we're kind of talking about establishing that benchmark and then tracking progress over time. But you could use these to run A/B testing too. So maybe you've got a pilot group of Chrome OS devices out there, and you want to segment the report out here, like I do here, of just the Chrome OS users, and then you run another report of all other users and compare the experience. A lot of other customers are leveraging these to just set them up to run automatically. So they run them on a Sunday night. It hits their inbox on Monday morning, and they leverage them to know exactly where they want to go in and proactively apply their resources to deal with end user experience issues. Maybe they want to roll these up once a month or once a quarter or once a week to team leaders or site leaders or management, so that they can see what's happening with end users within their particular organizational units. But for our purpose today, we want to benchmark. We want to establish this is a baseline. This is what we're comparing this new deployment against. And so our recommendation is that this would be really the first thing that you would go in and do. All right, so I just sorted by client because, again, we want to kind of focus on our Chrome OS devices deployments today. But let's say you've got a user that's like, you just gave me this new Chromebook. I don't know what to do with it. I tried to log on. I'm getting a terrible experience. It's taking forever. What's going on? This Chromebook must be broken. So you're able to quickly identify that session, that user in that session. And the first thing that you notice is, well, there's actually nothing wrong with your logon experience. It took you 19 seconds. Maybe you're used to 4 or 5 second logons. But your SLA that your organization has maybe 30 second logon, 10 second reconnects. There's nothing wrong with the logon experience here. So you can immediately rule out, okay, this is someone that is not either A, not experiencing an actual issue, or B, they're not sure what is causing their issue. So they're blaming the device. So the quick thing to rule out first is click on the Chrome OS tab and let's see what's happening with the device. Well, we've got automatic threshold lines. So we take the interpretation out of it. You don't have to know what's high or too high. We give you caution lines and critical lines. And we can see from a CPU perspective, it's running in the cautionary zone, but it's not crazy high. Memory is a little hot. Possible she's running something on her device in addition to her Citrix session that's eating up resources. But we're looking at the device health itself, so we can see exactly how she connected, what the server, the client, what version, the hypervisor. We can see the device ID itself. We can see actual health of it, CPU temp, core temp. We can also see network, and we can see right now that there's a poor network connection. So she's complaining that her Citrix session is slow or that it's taking her a while to log on. There's nothing here within the device that is an issue. So we can rule out that the device is the issue. That's not the issue. She's blaming it because it's new. Let's go in and see what's happening. And so now you've got the ability to quickly rule that out. Now let's say the opposite was true. She complained that she couldn't get in. This new Chromebook is a problem. You go in, you look, and maybe the CPU temp or the core temp is too hot, and okay, there might be something wrong with this device. At this point, it's not a Citrix issue because, again, it came to you because Citrix gets blamed for everything. It's not a Citrix issue. You can take a screenshot of this, or you can simply just forward it on to the endpoint team and say, hey, something wrong with the new Chrome OS device. Go ahead and check this out because it's causing some user issues. So you're easily able to rule in or rule out device as being part of the issue. So then you can dig in further if there are some issues. You can dig in further and see what's going on with the user session. And you're pulling in things like user experience. So we've got unique Citrix metrics that we're pulling in. So ICA performance, round trip time, latency. And we've got, again, threshold lines built in. So it makes it very easy to do the interpretation. It's really already done for you. We can see that there was a spike in round trip time here. So something was slow. She did experience a lag in some capacity, but we can also see her connection speed here. Now we saw on the Chrome OS tab that the network connection was poor. We can look at this a little further and say, yeah, her connection speed completely dropped off. She also was running, when we look at our ICA channel usage, this is really focused on user behavior. What is the user doing on the user side? We can see that she's got a lot of, this purple represents ThinWire. I'll show you, we're actually pulling in all of these metrics around user experience. Purple is ThinWire, and then we've got audio in there. She's running some video. So she's stressing her session on her own, and in addition to that, her connection speed dropped. And when we look at the threshold lines, we can also see that the connection speed was never hot to begin with. Like, she was in that cautionary zone and then, teetering on critical the entire time of her session. So her session performance issues had to do with two things, neither of which were the one thing that she blamed. She blamed the Chrome OS device, had nothing to do with the device. It had to do with her connection speed isn't great. So let's talk about, whether or not you've got the right internet plan, and we know how she connected because we can see the client address. Do you have the right, internet plan? Are you too far from your router? What happened there? And then also, what are you doing within your session? Are you streaming videos? Do you have Spotify running in the background, something that is eating up resources as well and constraining your bandwidth? So these are issues that we're able to go in and quickly identify when a user says that they're having a problem. So let's say Kiri sends in a ticket and he's saying it's taken me a long time to log in. What's going on? So I quickly filter out Kiri, filter by Kiri's name, and I can see the session in question. And oh, by the way, Kiri's not a Chrome OS user, he's on a Windows device. All of this is in the same console. So you don't have to have separate monitoring tools, separate troubleshooting tools for different OSs. That's all in the same console. So I can go into this session right here and I can say, okay, well, yeah, he had kind of a long logon. Let's see what the issue was. So we can drill down into what's happening with the logon itself. And we see all of the stages of the logon process all broken out and pulled into details. So we can break it. I think there's 33 plus stages of the logon process. And some of that depends on how much you've got in authentication and group policy, but we're pulling all of this in and we can see exactly visually how long each of these stages took. So we can say, okay, there was an issue here with client validation or server validation. Let's look into that. Or maybe there was an issue with the interactive session. Let's look into that and see what is taking so long there. And maybe we don't know. Maybe we don't know how to troubleshoot that. So we can go over to our AI troubleshooting assistant, Kip, here, and we can say, interactive session taking too long. And we'll let our AI assistant, which is a conversational troubleshooting tool, help us understand what it means when the interactive session is too long, and what are some of the troubleshooting steps that we might be able to take to figure out what's happening with the interactive session. And it populates this. And again, this is conversational. So it tells us what it means if we're not sure. And again, some of this too is not just about making sure that the Citrix teams have the information that they need to be able to troubleshoot. Some of this is about making sure that or enabling the IT support teams to be able to troubleshoot earlier in the escalation process. So having a tool like this makes it very easy to let maybe a level 2 person come in and troubleshoot a logon issue rather than having to always escalate to level 3. Maybe the user's calling in and they're saying that they're having a session performance issue. I can come here right here and quickly see, this user said my Citrix session is slow. I can look at this right now. I see the round trip time spiked, definitely had an issue there. I can see that the network latency spiked at the exact same time. I can also see in a direct line that the connection speed, the user's connection speed dropped at the exact same time. So if I wanted to dig in and look, I could quickly see, yep, at 12:55, there was a spike in latency, and at 12:55, the connection speed dropped off the planet. So it makes it very, very easy to get to the root cause of what's causing user experience issues. And again, getting fingers pointed in the right direction. And again, it's pulling in the entire inventory, not just Chrome OS devices, not just Windows, not just Mac OS. You've got it all in a single place. All right, so that's all the time we have from a demo perspective. If you wanted more time and wanted to see more, happy to jump on with any of you individually and go a little bit deeper into it, maybe look at some of your individual use cases if need be. And we'll drop also in the chat throughout the course of this webinar, we'll drop in links to get a free demo and also a free trial if that's something that you're interested in. So before we jump into Q&A, and I'm sure we've got some questions, just a couple things. We have a monthly troubleshooting masterclass. We had our first one last month. It was a huge success. It was kind of a high-level overview of sort of the primary issues. Our next session coming up on July 13th is going to be solely focused on session performance. So if that's something that's interesting to you, go ahead and leverage this QR code and you can go ahead and register for that. And then of course, we'll drop in links, Zishan, if you could put them into the chat, links for the free POC or free trial, as well as if you want access, 30-day access to your end user experience and productivity reports, we can provide that for you as well. So with that, Manju, do you want to jump back on? Do we have any questions or anything else you'd
definitely.
like to add?
So just a personal testimony I would like to share here. So I have a mini lab at Citrix Ready, especially used for Citrix Ready partners for validating their products and services with ours. So I recently deployed Goliath. It took just 2.5 hours. That's it. It's not a big time really, honestly, for over 80 machines or 80 VDAs. So it's that simple to configure and start monitoring the entire infrastructure. And bang on, from the day we installed it, we're able to monitor the entire infrastructure, keep it up to date, keep it running all the time. However, we have not configured the alerts and all of that via email, but the dashboard gives you exactly what to expect to keep the environment up and running all the time. So that's the beauty of having a solution like Goliath, which helps you in preventing the issue rather than troubleshooting it later.
That and I appreciate the personal testimonial with that, and you bring up a good point. You know, we talk about troubleshooting, but the best way to troubleshoot is to anticipate issues before they happen, to get ahead of them. So, you know, we're right out of the box. The moment you deploy Goliath, and Manju, you're experiencing this already. We're looking at more than 250 key conditions, events, failure points, things that are going to impact that end user experience, and we're capturing them, we're monitoring them, we're alerting on them, and it makes it very easy to get in and troubleshoot issues before they become, a major impact for your end users across your organization. So much more that we could go into, and we just, there's not enough time in a webinar session, but definitely a lot more that we can talk about as far as being able to take a proactive approach. And the first thing is to establish that benchmark, leveraging those end user experience reports to see what you actually look like today objectively, and then being able to measure over time the success of those new technology rollouts or deployments.
Great. I have only one question related to Chrome OS. I'll start with that. Then probably, Kerry, you can take the rest of the time for answering the questions related to Goliath. So this one is from Mike. Mike, there's a question. I would like to be able to automatically start a Citrix published app on Chrome OS device without user intervention and not anonymously. Is it possible?
So just so I understood that properly, looking to automatically launch a Citrix app,
yeah,
on Chrome OS. Yes, we actually, if you're talking about the scenarios where you might use, a Linux or Windows thin client to do an automatic logon with AD credentials and automatically launch an app, we actually have a free server component and extension combination called vLauncher. It's a product that's built around this specific type of use case where you have an unattended station, and it also is meant to deal with a common security problem of embedding those credentials at a local endpoint where you have active AD credentials in a place that can be exploited or potentially viewed easily in a compromise. The credentials are actually managed by an internal server that launches the session initially and sends the ICA down to the client for execution without the credentials ever being visible to the Chrome device, and then immediately spins the credentials. So your session's up and running. The account is already resecured. You don't have to worry about maintaining it. And it's all managed through a central web interface.
Great, thanks, Mike. So, Kerry, there's one question related to non-Chrome device, but the question is, can you monitor Dell-wise thin-OS devices?
Yeah, thin clients are definitely part of the OS that we can pull in for sure.
Okay, great. And I know you answered this question, but there's a question about, can I get a free trial of the user experience scorecard?
Yeah, of course. And again, Zishan, I can't see the chat, but I'm assuming Zishan has put the links for the free trials and free demos into the chat. So certainly, and if not, you can reach out to me personally, and we can set you up as well.
I have put out.
I know that there's.
Mike.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I have put out the links, Mike.
Perfect.
I have put out the links to the free demo and free trial.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I see them as well. And there's a question about what is the bandwidth and load consumed by pulling all the data from every endpoint?
So yeah, it's first of all very lightweight. Again, it's from a Chrome OS standpoint, we're just connecting to the Google Admin Console, so it's very lightweight. It's not constraining bandwidth. From the rest of the inventory, we're connecting via APIs where agents are involved. They're not on endpoint devices. They're actually on the VDAs and the XenApp server. So very lightweight, very little resource consumption, and works very quickly.
Great. So moving on to the next question. So I assume there's a statement, but not a question, but let me turn into a question and see if we can get the information that the question was asked about. So the question is like this. I would say that out of all the deployments my deployment has gone well with all the things considered. The remaining items that we are going back and forth are including sign-on processes, printer deployments, and peripheral support. So yeah, I think if you're looking for a Citrix-ready compatible product for, it could be sign-in processes. We have validated with Azure Active Directory, with Imprivata, with Okta, and many more in the future days. So you can consider those. The printer deployment is also supported now. We support USB printers, we support networking printers for the Citrix sessions on Chrome OS devices. And there are various peripheral supports, including the monitors. We have not tested the docking stations yet, but we have tested the USB hubs, which provide a similar functionality. So that should help you considering what you want by looking at the Citrix Ready marketplace with all the products that we have listed over there.
And from a monitoring and alerting standpoint, we're able to pull that in and provide alerting and monitoring for peripherals as well.
Right. So there's one basic question, Kerry. I know you answered this, but just go ahead and reiterate. So how is the data collected? Is there an agent which is installed on all the endpoints and server VDS?
Yeah, so we'll say at a high level, it's primarily API and somewhat agent, but API specifically for Chrome OS devices for sure. For other operating systems, it's not an agent on endpoints. We're able to pull that in by leveraging an agent on the VDA and the XenApp server. So again, very lightweight. You don't have to deploy agents on every single endpoint that you've got into your in your inventory. It makes it very easy to deploy and pull in new devices. And then again, from a Chrome OS perspective, once you've connected Goliath to the Google Admin Console or vice versa, anytime you're adding new devices to your environment, they're automatically pulled in. So nothing else to do there as well. So it's actually both API and agent. But again, from the agent perspective, it's not on the actual endpoints. It's on the VDAs and the XenApp server.
Great, thanks, Kerry. I know there are a few other questions and a few people are asking questions. So in case if you're unable to take those questions on this live session, we'll definitely revert to you via email, answering all your questions. Please feel free to ask your questions even now, and also drop your questions at citrixready@citrix.com email address. We'll get back to you with an answer. I'm going to take one last question, Kerry, with the interest of time. So do we capture application usage metrics, and how long the data that you capture is retained?
Yeah, so yes, we do. You can drill down into the published application. You can see which processes are running hot. And one of the things that we didn't have a chance to showcase on the demo was our on-demand remediation. So things like killing a process or ending an application or logging off or disconnecting a user session. Those are things that you can do right from within Goliath. You don't have to go back and forth between Goliath and Director, or even if you've got level 1 help desk or level 2 who maybe don't have access to Director, but they do have access to Goliath. They could see these issues and they can take on-demand remediation. So yeah, you can drill down into what's happening with the application process. Again, running hot, the application could be driving up resource utilization on the machine. As far as how long is the data retained for? I think that was the second part of your question. It's unlimited data retention. So it's stored in the backend SQL database. So really the limitation there is how much space you have within your SQL database. So we don't have any limitations for data retention. So if you want to go back and look at historical data so that you can compare over time or do some more like forensic root cause analysis, you've got unlimited data retention there to be able to go back and do that.
Hey, thank you so much for taking those questions. So there are a few other questions which, like I promised, I will share via email. I'll share via email, and you can perhaps go back answering them to the individual who asked them. So with that, Kerry and Mike, thank you so much for presenting your knowledge and sharing your experience and demoing all the good things about Goliath and Google, and helping your customers to make the best use of your solutions for Citrix deployments. And if there are anything that you want to share as final thought.
Yeah, from our perspective at Goliath, we appreciate the partnership that we've got with Google and with Citrix. Particularly from my perspective, being able to work with Mike and Manju, it makes it very easy to make sure that we're giving our end users, giving our customers, our joint customers, the ability to provide a really great end user experience. So we appreciate the partnership, and I personally appreciate you guys jumping on and letting me part of this session with me.
Yeah,
Great. Sorry, go ahead, Mike. I didn't mean to cut you.
No worries. And thank you very much for the opportunity to participate on this. It's been great continuing to work and develop with all of you, and particularly to those that are on. We still have an invaluable place for your feedback, insights, and business requirements. A lot of this isn't just about building, what we think will be successful. It's been about reading and being involved with the industry and incorporating that feedback to make sure we're all successful together. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Kerry and Mike. So we leave that on a thought. Be proactive in ensuring your infrastructure is up and running always, rather than troubleshooting it later, like doing a postmortem. So be proactive and have a good and healthy environment. Thank you so much, Mike and Kerry, for hosting us, for being part of this webinar and allowing me to host you. Thank you.
Thank you.